Good evening, everyone. Warm welcome. On behalf of ADI and AMA, I formally invite you to this wonderful panel discussion that is going to happen on Design Moments, an evening dedicated to our design guru MP Ranjan. I'm Dishank. I'm in charge of the programs and development activities here. So I will start with the introduction of our esteemed guests and speakers. I'll start with Professor Ashok Chatterjee. Uh, He's the honorary president of the Crafts Council of India for over 20 years and continues to support artisan development. May I request Professor Ashok to kindly come on the stage. Ms. Rashmi, co-founder of Studio RANJAN and founder of the Design Concern, India's first all-woman product design firm. Kindly come on the stage, please. Thank you. Dr. Rebecca. She's a designer, sustainability advocate, and educator specializing in the nexus of craft design and sustainability. Please give her a round of applause, please. Mr. Sumiran. He's an engineer, designer, and researcher with over 15 years of expertise in software design, craft consultancy, and information visualization. So, Parth, may I request you to please. Finally, I invite Ms. Paulami. She is the treasurer, ADI Ahmedabad. I request Parth to please present the rules to her. I'm sure this is going to be an eventful evening for all of you. And now I request Shri Digvijay to kindly take over and handle the further proceedings. Yeah, thank you so much.
Good evening to you. I am Digvijay Singh and I represent ADI, the core team, which is just newly been formed here. Along with me are Shimul Kathan, Surat Singh Rana, Jemin and Paulomi. We are the core team here and a lot more ADI members present here. We all welcome you here for our first session this season. This is a patronage to Mr. MP Ranjan. Ranjan, an educator, a teacher, and he's taught me as well. I still remember the times when I actually entered NID, and that man had some magnetism in him. So he used to take his little coffee breaks to the canteen there at the BMW. And in these 15 minutes, there used to be like 15 people surrounding him. So he had this aura around him. And he was so dedicated towards his work and everything, you know. So this chapter we're starting with Ranjan, and along with that we're going to pay a lot of patronage and homage to the coming times to a lot more design gurus. So ADI will be doing that, and thank you AMA for being a part of it, and in association with AMA we plan to do a lot more on those lines. So let me hand over the mic to Paulomi now, and she can take over and we can start the sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Digvijay. Thank you, AMA. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. And I'll try to switch the PPTs. So we are starting, and when I say we, I mean the Association of Designers of India, Ahmedabad chapter. So the Association of Designers of India has many chapters across many important cities of India. Ahmedabad is the mecca of design. This is where the National Institute of Design was set up in 1964, and now there are many branches. We are starting this series called Design Moments amongst a lot of other programs of ADI. And we are going to honor and talk about the work of many senior designers and their contribution. We are very lucky some of them are sitting in the audience. And in the front row, we have Professor Choksi, we have Dr. Anil Sinha, we have in the middle Sangeeta Shroff, and Dinesh Korjan, Mala Shodhan, and Errol, I don't know where is Errol is there. Errol is there at the back. So important people who have helped shape design sensibilities and design approach, design education. I can also see Sangeeta Kalsi. And a lot of students here and some young designers. We want to associate ADI Ahmedabad chapter as a knowledge sharing platform between senior designers, their contribution, their work, the challenges they faced in their work, so that young people can learn from it. And there are a lot of design schools now, so a lot of design educators also. So we would like to have many programs in association with, in collaboration with different schools, design schools, and ADI Ahmedabad has some student chapters and institutional members. And I'm also new, just to clarify, I'm not a designer, I'm not trained at NID, but I used to work with NID 22 years back. And I'm a student of English literature. I joined NID as a researcher. And I'm very lucky and honored to have worked with the Ranjans. I used to work on NID's museum design projects, but with Aditi and MP Ranjan, I worked on Handmade in India. So the best person to start our series of events is an dedication to MP Ranjan. And a little introduction about MP Ranjan. Digvijay said very warmly what he meant to people. He meant a lot to everybody. He was born in Chennai in 1950. 9th November is now celebrated a Design Guru Day across many institutions. He came from a family where the core business was manufacturing toys, wooden toys and furniture. And he never lost touch with that. He joined NID to study furniture and product design in 1969, one of the first few batches of NID. And he joined as a faculty in 1972. There he met Aditi. Aditi Ranjan is one of India's most important textile designers. Her passion is weaving, research, and history and documentation. Between 1974 and 1976, Ranjan went back to Chennai and he came back to work in NID, and then he was with NID till he left us in 2015. Professor Chatterjee would start more about how he met Ranjan. Ranjan was also awarded, along with Aditi, the Kamala Samman Award. And his books, Bamboo and Cane Crafts of Northeast India in 1986 and Handmade in India, which is there. Please go through it. The PDF is available online. It's an encyclopedic edition on the crafts and handlooms of India. So Professor Chatterjee, now I ask him to talk a bit about how you first met Ranjan. You can sit there. There's a slide. You can switch off the light, one light. Is there any AMS staff?
Welcome there.
Mic is on. Mic is on.
Mic is on. Okay. Thank you. Happy to be here and to remember Ranjan. This is a very personal situation, I think, for many of us who knew Ranjan. And some of the things that I'm going to say will not be perhaps as upbeat as an evening like this should be, because Ranjan believed that the design education sector was in deep crisis. And I would like to share with you some of the reasons why. But coming back to how I met Ranjan, I joined NID in 1975 at a time when the Institute had just come through a very grave crisis, which had threatened its very existence. Mrs. Pupul Jayakar, who was the chairperson of NID at that time, told me before I actually came to Ahmedabad, She said, there is a fellow there in Ahmedabad called MP Ranjan. Just note that name because he won't be there on the campus when you go there. He has walked out of the institute. And I would suggest that one of your priorities should be to try and get this guy back. So that was on my list when I arrived in NID, the day the emergency was declared, the day after that. And fairly soon after that, I asked around, everybody knew Ranjan. It seemed that he had not agreed with the jury of his diploma project and had therefore, in a huff, left the campus saying that he knew more than the jury and they had no business to dismiss his thesis, his diploma project. So I land up in Madras and I go to Rocky Toys across the road from the Connemara Hotel on Mount Road, and I meet this guy. I then realized that he was a prickly fellow, a bit of a cactus, Ranjan. And I said, I'm here to meet you. And I told him quite frankly, the reason I've come here is that Mrs. Pupul Jayakar tells me that I ought to try and get you back to NID. Damn nonsense, rubbish. Why have you come here for that? I said, well, she asked me to do that, but anyway, whether you're coming or not, I'd like to meet you. So we got talking. To cut a long story short, that day went on for the most of the morning and the afternoon with Ranjan's dad, watching and listening. All of this is taking place in a little shop with a workshop, and then I'm told by Ranjan that I have to go and see the actual workshop, which was further down the road. Anyway, during this discussion, Ranjan asked me to pull out my pad and notebook and to make some notes. And these notes were about what my task as director should be. And while I was making these notes, I realized what a deep connection he had to people on the campus. There were people whose careers he was worried about. He wanted me to look at that. He wanted me to look at this, that, and the other. He wanted me to concentrate on industrial design facilities. Too much damn nonsense on visual communication going on there. We need to correct the balance. All this was going on. And at the end of the day, I had to get across to something else. I said, well, I'm going back. What would you do if I sent you an offer? And he looked at me and he said, an offer for what? And I said, to join there as a faculty. He said, I haven't finished my diploma project. I looked at him, okay. And then he said, I will consider it. And for the first time, he began to laugh and smile. So I knew that at least what Mrs. Jayakar had asked me to do was moving in the right direction. Eventually, I came back and he came. The reason I'm telling you this is that I'd really like to know why ADI and others celebrate him as a guru. Because we have a bad habit in this country about putting people on an altar and then worshipping them. But do we know what made Ranjan great? Do we know what he wanted for design education? Do we care about the education system that built him and that he helped to build? Those are some of the issues that I want to come to later. But I'll also just tell you one thing before I end this, is that the night before he died, Ranjan sat me down and asked me to do something for him. And that something is a book you see there on Jawaja. Uh, Ranjan said to me that most of the people who were involved with this seminal project were going away, disappearing. And he said, you may be the only one left with the institutional memory. And if you go, that institutional memory will be gone. And it's your job to write this, to rewrite it, because I had written this book. I had finished this book in 2000, and the entire book had been lost, with every page, every artwork, everything. So I said, Ranjan, how do you expect me to rewrite this book? My co-author has passed away. Where will I start? He said, that's your problem. But I will help you. And then in his usual manner, he said, I'll even give you a computer. I said, I have a computer. He said, that's not a computer. I mean a Mac.
Mac.
Huh? And he said, I'll teach you. But give me this promise that you will do this. The next day, he was gone. So finally, when COVID came around, I decided I would dedicate a chunk of whatever life was left for me to do this book. And now it's out, dedicated to him and to several others. But I want you to know that because this has been the journey. This strange conversation in Madras in 1975, and then this instruction to him that you have to do this. And he wasn't taking no for an answer. So I think I'll stop there. I'll share the other thoughts later.
Thank you, Professor Chatterjee. So just to let you know, especially there are young people in the audience, students and young faculty. So today's discussion, we have 4 panelists from 4 different age groups who worked with Ranjan, and other than Professor Chatterjee, others have studied and simultaneously worked with Ranjan. So we are looking at the multiple perspectives of this important person through his work. He was extremely passionate about design, and he believed that everyone is a designer. That it doesn't matter if you don't study in a design school, you don't go to get a design degree or diploma. There is a designer in all of us. And so now I invite Rashmi Korjan. Rashmi taught alongside Ranjan. So we've just tried to put together some words that when you see, you immediately think of Ranjan. Whichever part of the world you are, these are some of the words that are immediately associated with Ranjan. So there are 2 courses he was mainly famous for. One is DCC. Took me a long time at NIT to understand what DCC means, design, concepts and concerns. And the other was SPD. SPD is taught by Dinesh Korjan. So Rashmi would like to invite you. She's going to talk about her, learning from Ranjan and how then that translated into design education and design curriculum. How do you design curriculum through how Ranjan explained? You can come here.
Yeah, okay. I can
Whatever you're comfortable.
yeah, I can see the slides. So okay, so what you're seeing on the screen are some images from the course Design Concepts and Concerns, which I had the privilege and honor of teaching with Ranjan for almost 14 years. And it used to be taken in the foundation program. So I thought I will just reflect on my, on the years of teaching with him and the kind of lessons that I got or took from that about design and also about teaching itself. So these images that you're seeing are work that students produce, some images of students themselves, and work that students produced as part of the course. And one of the interesting things was that Ranjan, he believed that even young students in foundation could given a large challenge, could really think big. So some of these are part of an exercise where students were asked to imagine what would be a new design school, what would be new design schools in India. And what was interesting was that students looked at different regions of India, and what came out of that was that there would be interesting schools which are rooted in that region from where, so if we're talking about the south, if we're talking about the west, if we're talking about the east, so each group of students imagined how it would actually be connected to the geography, the crafts, the industries, and everything that was already available in that particular region. And so they then visualized some images about, composite images of what would be their metaphor for that kind of school for students. So teaching with Ranjan, I remember early on, one of the, when I had just started teaching with him, and towards the end of a class, students all came to me and they had all kinds of requests. They couldn't submit in time. They were going to submit late. Someone wanted 2 days more. Someone wanted 4 days more. And I was getting very impatient with them. And I'm telling them, this is not the way, when a deadline is given, you're supposed to follow the deadline. This is how we do things. It's you to be professional about it. And, I was sort of getting a bit agitated. And Ranjan was standing in the distance watching this whole exchange. And finally, we arrived at resolving that, and students said, okay, 1 week later or whatever, they will do it. And then, so then I walked past and I went where Ranjan was, and both of us walked out. And then Ranjan said that, actually, our job as teachers is more like being gardeners, we just have to nurture the plants, and they will bloom and blossom and grow as and when they will, And I have never forgotten that in all these years of teaching. And sort of it put in context the necessity or the non-necessity for kind of, getting into this nitty-gritty argument with the students. And I have always seen that Ranjan was never instructive, never prescriptive, but always using suggestion or asking like what if questions, what if we did this, what if we did that, or I might have done it this way, maybe we could do this. But more than that, he really taught by inspiring students. So Ranjan had this absolute unwavering belief in the power of design, in how design can be meaningful, how design can create change, how design has agency. And this is what he would really communicate with his passion to students, who then themselves began to feel that they had agency and that whatever they were doing, that they could make a difference. And I think with that kind of almost, he could fuel them with that fire, and that would mean students worked so hard in his courses, such long hours, but because they were really excited and inspired to do what they were doing. Also, Ranjan always was very flexible. So before a course began, we would have a kind of discussion about the course of the course and what we were going to do and in what sequence and things like that. But that was always open to revision. And at any stage, he was always like, okay, I think students are struggling with something, or something is taking time, so maybe we'll repeat this again. Or maybe, they've been able to do this so wonderfully well and fast, so we can go on to the next thing. So there was no hard and fast kind of very rigid structure that had to be what this has to be achieved, so many assignments have to be done. It was always really adapting to and responding to the students themselves. One of the other things that I was always struck by was Ranjan's generosity. So Ranjan got an internet connection. It was some, I forget, a special connection much before everybody had internet. And he was so excited about it, and he thought everyone should experience this. So to many of us, he gave his password. Of course, it was a slow dial-up. I mean, it took, and internet was so, but we all had, like, we could all taste what it meant to be able to use this internet, and how what is it all about? Because it was the buzz was about this new thing coming up, and we are all curious about it. Similarly, he got a digital camera from one of his, I think, trips to the southeast. I don't remember, maybe Hong Kong or somewhere. And in those days, I think he paid like ₹1,00,000 for the camera and ₹1,00,000 for duty on the camera or something like that, because he said that I am willing to pay whatever the duty is. But also then he would share that with all of us and show us what are the possibilities, new possibilities going to be, because there's this new medium where you can just shoot and shoot and shoot, and you're not counting 36 frames, which is what we were used to doing, the precious 36 frames. And he would encourage us to use the camera, try it out, and things like that. But perhaps even more than that, he was so generous with his time. I don't know if there's anyone who knew him who would have sent him an email and did not get a reply, whether it is at 2 a.m. or at what time, but he would make time to respond to students, to colleagues, to even others whom he met and who had a query for him. So he really was so generous while making the time. And I think Digvijay mentioned how in the canteen he would be surrounded often by students, and he was most willing to sit there, even if they were not at that time his students, but to discuss their courses and whatever. And
Could you tell us about your curriculum?
Okay. So Ranjan had this great way with students and with colleagues to throw a challenge at you, but then he's really always there to support you, to see that you can rise to the challenge. So he was working at Agartala on this Bamboo Cane and Development Institute. And one day when I went to the institute for class, he said, "You are just the person I'm looking for. You're going to write the curriculum for this institute." And I said, "Me, Ranjan? Write curriculum?" So he said, no, of course. What is it? These are the crafts people. We are going to try and do this. We'll have a discussion about it. I will tell you exactly what we have to do. You can study. And literally he made it, he said, look, he gave me a reference list of books. He told me who are the people on campus I should talk to. And so he really supported me through that, and so it facilitated this possibility that I could do something that I had not the craziest idea that I would ever be writing this curriculum. So we did this curriculum review, we did the curriculum for the institute, we also went there and taught a few modules in Agartala. And this is something that I've seen him do with so many people, so many students also, who were somehow not getting interested in class, who are not, and then he would, call them separately and figure out what might be of interest to them and give them a kind of a project and really see it see them through and see them shining through in that uh, project that he gave them. Um, so, so just the last thing I wanted to say was that Ranjan also was so generous with information. And he had this childlike quality. He would be so excited by ideas, and then he always just wanted to share them. And there's so some quote I have seen about how knowledge is a public good, and its value increases with the larger number of people who process it. So the more people who use it. And Ranjan really embodied that, because if he came across something that he saw on the net, he came across a new book, he read a new author about design, and then he was there perhaps in the canteen or wherever, in the tea room or in the classroom, always willing to share these new ideas and tell us. Or if he had gone for a conference and encountered some interesting new designers, then he would bring that back and share it with us. So it was this amazing generosity which one was really struck with while working with him. So
Thank you, Rashmi. So Ranjan used to write a blog, so all his classes he would, at the end of the class, at the end of the course, would put on the blog. And the blog is still active, so for students and young educators, if you want to know, learn anything, you can always use that as a resource. Now we come to Rebecca. Rebecca was taught by Ranjan, and is bamboo the connection?
Is this okay? It is working. So, the first time I met Ranjan, he was taking a course on folding and he was not in class. So I was very agitated about this. So I stormed down to his room where he was reading a book while doing something on the internet at the same time. And I was very irritated and I said, "Don't you feel guilty not coming to class while all of us are sitting there?" So he looked and he said, "What is actually the problem?" So I said, "I want to learn." So he said, "There's so many books here. Take a book, learn." So it was very exciting because there were lots of very exciting books in his office. So I took a book and I learned. And then I asked him, "Can I borrow this book?" And he said, "No, you don't look like the type who's going to return my books." So then every day, whenever he would not be in class, I would go to his office and I would pull out a book and I would sit in front of him while he watched how I handled the book and put it back in the right place, which was in some stack which only he knew the logic of, and work. So in between all of these, he talked to me about all kinds of strange things, but what was really interesting was his conversations about futuring and scenarios that other people thought were not going to happen. So when Ranjan was crazy about using the internet, I thought it was a fad that was going to go away. But Ranjan was appalled at my lack of interest in technology, and he tried to brainwash me several times, and finally he succeeded. When he was talking about bamboo, I was talking about industrial design. So my plan was to become Philip Stark. And one of the prime things Ranjan and I talked about was why Philip Stark, and how Philip Stark, according to Ranjan, is like one of the big baddies out there, and according to me, he fulfills a need. So when my graduation project, as in my diploma project, was finally happening, I told Ranjan, "I'm going to do a very mainstream project, and you see, I'm going to earn a lot of money, and that's my plan." So Ranjan forbade me from doing this. He made my life miserable, and he coerced me into going to Tripura. And he said that you stay there for 15 days. If you don't like it, you come back, but at least do 15 days there. So I said, okay. So I went to Tripura, and I actually didn't realize that people were so poor, like economically, and so rich in terms of culture, and that I didn't know anything about bamboo. after a week, I called him up. So he said, coming back? So I said, no. So he said, okay. And then he put the phone down. so so our conversations were very brief. When I was leaving Tripura, I had purchased an alcohol maker, and I had taken a lot of photographs so that the airline people would know what it was in my checked-in baggage, but unfortunately they didn't. They made me open everything, which made me very irritated because I'd packed a lot of the things very, very carefully. So I met these people who I thought were either going to try and convert me or they were journalists, and when they were leaving, they asked me that do you know Ranjan? And by this time, I had been my usual self, so I don't think that I wanted Ranjan to know before my jury that I had had this kind of a word with them. So they said, oh, we love Ranjan. And they gave me the card, and it was the International Network for Bamboo and Rattan. So I was very terrified that they're going to go and tell Ranjan that we've met a student of yours and whatever, whatever. But anyway, so I came back and I told Ranjan myself, okay, all this stuff has happened and I have done this and I've spoken like this. And he said, okay, forget it. So 3 months later, they asked me to work with them because of Ranjan. So I went to Ranjan and I said, what do you think, Ranjan? It's something so undesignerly. Should I do it? So he said, of course you should do it. If you don't do it, who will do it? Go do it, this, that. And because I had worked with bamboo, a lot of people ask me, how did I get into bamboo? I got into bamboo because Ranjan forced me to work with bamboo. And then Ranjan convinced me to work with Inbar. And when I was going crazy among botanists and all that, Ranjan was like, you want a book? Wait, I'll find you a book. I'll send you a book. I've got this free ebook. And so this is how I stayed with Inbar. For me, what really struck me about Ranjan was that in a time when there were teachers of design, Ranjan was an academic. The amount he read and the amount of knowledge he had was fantastic. I have never known anyone so interested in the pursuit and the spreading of information and knowledge. There was this one time that a politician invited me to come and sit on some national IGNOU board, and they wouldn't pay my airfare or my stay. So I called up Ranjan and I said, what is this? I'm not going. How can they be like so cheap? They want me to come and they don't want to pay my stay and travel and all that. And Ranjan said, are you mad? Can you not afford it? So I said, that's not the point. So he said, the point is never miss an opportunity to educate or be educated. You have the ear of the education minister. What is your problem? Just go. If you want money, I'll give you. So I said, no, okay, I'll go. So I also went and I had these huge conversations with Ranjan about what I would talk about, etc., etc. But that thing really stuck with me about his like insatiable appetite to share and to consume information and knowledge. He wrote the foreword for my book on bamboo, and when I wrote it, he was one of the people who told me, along with my father, that please don't write something that's very wordy. If it's for designers, it has to have pictures, okay? And make sure that there are illustrations and diagrams and things like that. Like you have to engage. Like this is also an exercise of communication. So therefore, I wrote this, and I was after his life to write my foreword, which he very generously revised. All the time that I spoke with Ranjan or I interacted with Ranjan, I thought I was very special because he made me feel very, very special. It was only after Ranjan passed away that I realized that everybody, he made them feel really special. I was quite jealous for a bit, you know. So the day I heard about this, I sat on my computer, I opened all of my emails from Ranjan, I called a few dear friends who thought I was insane because I asked them, how many emails do you have in your box? But the amount of books he has sent me, and when I reread those emails even today, because I think that what he says is so relevant and so forward thinking, because it was always a very systems perspective for him. It was not it was not, I've never heard him gossip about anyone. I've never heard him say something behind someone's back that he would not say to their face. I mean, it's highly likely that he would say to their face first before he told this thing to me. And what I'm just amazed with was that, as Rashmi brought out, he celebrated everything that the students did. So in a world where in design education you were terrified of a jury, Ranjan was a pleasure to speak with. He always encouraged. And I've seen this kind of warm feeling towards Ranjan from craftspeople, from politicians, from secretaries, from anyone, you know. And Ranjan always made people feel valued, respected, and he left them with the feeling that they could take on the world. And I think, like, for me, that is what was really so enduring and special about Ranjan.
Could you draw attention to sustainability? That's something you have in your PhD, and you still work in that through Rhizome Design.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So when we were talking about sustainability, Ranjan and I, sustainability was not really a thing. There was, like, it was the year of the Lord, I think 2001, when we started talking about sustainability. And except for the UN, no one was really talking intensively about sustainability, especially about the connect between sustainability and design, or sustainability and craft. There were a few threads here and there, but they were few and far beyond. What was amazing about Ranjan was that he could connect the dots, and he could also recognize that someone was doing something interesting. So when I was writing my book, he connected me to several people from different facets of life. He very kindly introduced me to them. And for him, sustainability was something huge and something that we constantly spoke about. And often when we had no answers, we would look at each other and he's like, well, that's a problem for tomorrow. We are going to think about this and come back and talk about it tomorrow. And we always did. So he was incredibly supportive in my journey. He came and visited me at Rhizome as well, and talked about the same kind of stuff. And I think his ability to see what we call design futuring, or future issues that would emerge in design, was phenomenal, and sustainability was one of them.
Thank you. So, thank you. We'll now call upon Sumiran. Sumiran and Shivani, they own Gatha. Some of you might be aware it's gatha.com, if I'm not mistaken, that's the website. But it evolved out of a lot of discussions with various important design people from the design field, and they were very closely inspired, motivated by Ranjan. And so Sumiran is going to talk about it, but there's one, Dinesh Kurjan, who taught with Ranjan. He told me something, that Ranjan believed in empowerment. So even if he is talking to one student who's probably in foundation, 17, 18-year-old, doesn't know anything about design, has come from a remote part of India, maybe is not well conversant with English also, and most of the classes are held in English. So he said, when you doodle, it is so important that there was so much information even in a small doodle, that don't throw away anything. Don't give yourself that judgmental, that opinion, that you think that whatever you do is not important. And coming from somebody of that stature, it meant a lot. And Ranjan was not just a father figure, he had that quality about him, But he would sit with you and he would say, "Arey yaar, kya kar rahe ho? Just tell me, talk to me." And you could tell him anything, like anything, all the guards to the kakas, who used to work in the workshop at NID. And not just NID, he also went on to teach and guided CEPT and Ahmedabad University when it was setting up. Different universities like Flames in Pune, ISDI Parsons in Mumbai, and many other places, and even remote parts of India. So when he passed away, there's a Facebook page remembering MP Ranjan. Anybody can join it. You will just see the number of people who have howled their hearts out for him, and writing what they learned from him. So this particular program is just a small, tribute that we can have for Ranjan. He is much, much bigger than we can put together in, matter of like 45 minutes or 1 hour. So Minan is the newest generation to have imbibed from Ranjan.
I'll make her more jealous. My mailbox is also filled with Ranjan's mail.
Start with this.
And you know, at night, 2 o'clock, he used to send a G-Talk message. Have you read this? So next day I asked him, Ranjan, what do you do at 2 o'clock at night? And you're already retired. He said, I'm retired, but how many mails I send every day? I said, how many? Only 150 plus. And his mail was not like a 1-line or 2-liner mail. It was like a full 1-page mail. Anyways, like I'm from Bhopal, my parents live there, but in Ahmedabad he was like a parents, no doubt. And I'm not the only one who felt the same. There were many people. It was like one-to-many relations. As soon as you join NID, within a few week or month, they will know everything about you. Your interest, your intention, who is your girlfriend, tum kal class kyun nahi aaye. Everything, even if you are working on any course, कि 20 साल पहले किसी ने ये वाला course ऐसा ही किया था. So they also had a very good, memory and, what should I say, interest in each and every project. Like first interaction happened when I joined NID in first semester. We had a course called DCC. We were sitting in the class. The one, very, very teacher-like a person entered into the class wearing red shirt and the quadra pant and a big bag on his shoulder and lots of Xerox. And Nina came in, she said, he's Ranjan, he's expert in bamboo and thinking, design thinking, rest he'll tell you. So he just sat on the table, he opened his bag, he pulled out his Mac laptop. We all of us were like user interface design student, IT, we did engineering in computer science and IT or architecture. We were very fascinated, wow, Mac. We said, sir, you're using Mac? He said, call me Ranjan. And then he said, I'm using since 90s. And I had a second internet connection in Ahmedabad. So we are like, we thought it's a design class, they'll talk about more form, colors, and then he started talking about microprocessor design. And then we had a long discussion on the algorithm, compression, and many different, things. And then suddenly switched to another direction. He said, which algorithm is the best algorithm? So then we say that JPG algorithm is a very good, it's compressing BMP image into falana percent. Bole, no. The best compression is the seed is the best example. The entire tree is compressed into the seed. So हमें समझ में नहीं आया कि what he's saying. Then later we realized कि he's going to another dimension. Then he said कि your idea is like a seed. You can grow a marigold plant, or a mango tree, or a banyan tree. It's up to you how you are going to start. So that was the first, then suddenly, after 2 weeks, he just boosted our confidence to another level. We never thought कि हम क्या कर सकते हैं या क्या हो सकता है. Then, suddenly he was sitting in the class and everybody was very, dull. And the tea guy came. And then he gave a tea to the teachers. And then he looked at us कि हम सब भी थोड़े ढीले डाले. और he said कि you people also want to drink tea? He said yes. तो नहीं आज चाय वाला कि इन सबको भी चाय पिलाओ. तो then he refused कि no सर ये चाय तो केवल टीचर्स के लिए है, इन लोगों के लिए नहीं है. तो बोला how many I can drink? सर ऐसा तो कोई रूल नहीं है. तो बोलते then he said कि today I want to drink 10 teas. And then he signed on the register कि Ranjan had a 10 tea today. And then we all of us had a chai. So there are so many memorable experience what I think everyone had with him. And later when I finished my diploma, there was a lots of buzz in the campus about the startup, Silicon Valley or blah blah, incubation center was there. So we started a company on software and data visualization design. So one day he told me can you work on a timeline of Indian craft? I want to put it into the Handmade in India volume 2, which he was planning. So then I said yes. So with 3 of us we started working on Ariel's room, I think in NID. Harini and Imanshu, all of us. And then one day I asked him, ki, Ranjan, don't you think ki, craft is an evolving process, and in the book you are actually freezing? How can you update the process? So they just looked at me and said, design a business plan. So I was very excited कि चलो business तो बोल रहे हैं business plan बनाओ. So then that's how we started.
This one, this image.
No, I mean there are many discussions actually. So this was one of the. I
Sorry,
don't know.
the lights are on, so it's
Huh?
not
Yeah,
visible.
it's okay. So that's how we started Gatha in 2009, and since 2009 we are working on the same ideology and same learning what we have learned from him. Then he was a true visionary actually. One day I was discussing and showing him a user interface of our website. He said, Ki Sumiran, why can't we do one thing? Every artisan has a camera over here. I'm talking about 2010. Camera, he's making pot and people are placing online orders. I was laughing and Ranjan ने कि YouTube का वीडियो तो चल नहीं रहा है ना, आप लाइव स्ट्रीमिंग करना चाहते हो सबके पॉट की जिसको लोग वहीं से बैठ के ऑर्डर कर रहे हैं. बट टुडे व्हेन आई सी इट्स हैपनिंग. सो मतलब आज आप देखो सारे आर्टिजन्स आर पुटिंग अप देयर वीडियो, दे आर गोइंग लाइव, दे आर सेलिंग प्रोडक्ट. सो आई डोंट नो लाइक हाउ टू define him. It's so difficult.
So you sent this in.
This was another interesting model actually. One day I was very upset because we designed a identity for Flipkart when they started, and they selected one of the boring design which we did. I mean it was very ugly looking. So then I was very upset. I went to him and I said, Ranjan ये क्या है, आप जो अच्छी चीज़ बनाते हो तो सेलेक्ट ही नहीं होता और कुछ और ही सेलेक्ट हो जाता है. तो देन ये सडनली सन कि तेरे को कौन सी हीरोइन अच्छी लगती है. तो मैंने बोला आई लाइक दीपिका पादुकोण. बोला आई तो जस्ट हेट हर, आई तो लाइक इन्होंने कोई रैंडम हीरोइन का नाम लिया. सो देन ही एक्सप्लेन मी कि यार इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि दोनों में कोई भी अच्छा बुरा है. तो एज अ डिज़ाइनर व्हाट यू हैव टू डू, यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड योर क्लाइंट एंड यू हैव टू डिलीवर अकॉर्डिंग टू हिज और हर taste or requirement or whatever. Then immediately we sat on his table and he made this model. It's called Design Journey. And later he also published a paper on Design Journey. And he was so, what should I say, humble, he included my name also in discussion with Sumiran. जबकि उस टाइम तो मतलब I was just passed out from NID and he was like a like almost like a 56-57-year-old teacher. So I think what I understand is I don't know. I think we really miss him. And our discussion was not actually a proper a round table discussion. It was everywhere. At Kaka's tea shop or Maskaban ka shop or Chai Gate. And one day he told me very interestingly, यार ये बहुत हो गया ऐसे फालतू डिस्कशन करने में, वी हैव टू बिल्ड अ सिलिकॉन वैली काइंड ऑफ एटमॉस्फेयर. तो उन्होंने कहा व्हाट शुड वी डू. तो टुडे विल डिस्कस इन अ कोवर्किंग स्पेस. सो वी वेंट एक्चुअली टू अ कोवर्किंग स्पेस. वहाँ पे टेबल पे देन यू ऑर्डर सम इडली और वो एंड देन वी हैड अ डिस्कशन ओवर देयर. सो ही वाज वेरी वेरी एनर्जेटिक पर्सन एक्चुअली. Thank you.
Thank you. So someone very open to discussions and very adventurous, like he would कोई भी idea लेके जाओ वो सुनते थे and then he would try to translate it into workable model kind of a thing. Now we come to this encyclopedic production of handmade in India. I think there was a time, this was a 5-year project with NID. There was a time that हम लोग मजाक करते थे कि NID, there was a cabin जहाँ पे people would sit and work. कि पास से निकल के जाओगे तो पकड़ लेंगे और फिर you're part of the project. Everybody literally has been part of that project. Like there's hardly anyone who has passed by and not been part of that project. So this is one of the projects NID did, one of the big government project. This is Development Commission of Handicrafts, New Delhi Commission, where probably the largest number of non-design people were involved. There were photographers, there were researchers, and they went all over India, in the remotest part of India, taking photographs. तब again digital camera hardly existed, but वो लोग कहीं से जुगाड़ कर कनेक्शन निकाल देते थे कि उस गांव में या इस स्मॉल टाउन में जाओ, इससे बात करो, and you know you can hire the camera for a few days and document. Um, it took multiple groups of people to design the book. You can easily download. It's available for free on the Ranjan's website. The website link is already there. It's been republished by Mappin now. But the thing is that the whole idea of using the book is ek to index hota hai na, like you look at it that way. But if you look at chicken curry, then all the pages in which chicken curry has been mentioned, you'll find that. Also, if you look at Lucknow, then again, you know, there's another way of looking at it. So these kind of connections were made. So he not only taught system design in all his projects, like they were all discussing the big Northeast bamboo project and all, he sort of ensured that it was implemented. And students were involved in the whole process. I would just like to say my 2-bit for Handmade. I am one of the 5 final editors of the book. I edited 13 states in 1 month. And Aditi told me to work on it. And I told her I'll do this in 1 month. She said, nahi hoga. How will you do it? I said, I'll do it. I didn't want to be left out of not being on the Handmade in India team. And NID used to have these chairs at that time, canvas ka ya jute ka, you know, baithne ka. And I used to have a lower back pain, and you're sitting on the computer and working for hours. So and NIDians were very nostalgic and very passionate about those chairs. So ek din maine himmat juta ke I said, I can't sit on this for long hours, my back hurts. So they used to get big size, I don't know what you call that size, this big, you know, the newspaper print wala, pura size ka print out from the IT studio. And it was not easy. They had to take special permission from accounts, वो sign करना होता था, फिर जवाब देना होता था that why is this being permitted, who is this Palami Das, इसको क्यों मिल रहा है, you know, expensive होते थे printouts. And Bodli wala sir used to be in the IT lab and he used to look at me, you again, why do you want those printouts? तो पूरा page का layout का printout लेके I couldn't sit for longer, so I used to lie on my stomach and I used to edit them by hand and then come back and then edit on the computer. And every day for that 1 month, Aditi and Ranjan used to ask me that, isn't your work being doubled? I said, but you know, I can type with both hands, it's faster. When I've edited by hand, because text box mein fit karna hota tha na, the number of words you can use and all. And I was literally a nobody. I was just another researcher. हम जैसे बहुत लोग आते जाते हैं in big institutions, but they never made anyone feel small. Even today, like I was very lucky to meet Aditi for a bit yesterday, they always ask, what are you doing? What are you doing these days? You know, that's the whole thing about Ranjan. You can't put it in a few words. You can't explain. Like, the legacy he leaves behind is, I mean, none of us can talk about Ranjan in the past tense. Very difficult for us to say he was with us, you know, and he's still with us. And so Professor Chatterjee, now request you to tell us more.
Thank you. I think so much has been said about him, and as you say, he's very much a presence with us today, and I think that's his legacy. But I'd like to go back to what you've just heard several of us tell you, the audience, about this great guy, about his generosity. Let me just start with that. Over the last few days, there's been an example of how ungenerous and how small designers can be. And that's what has happened over the past couple of days. A small incident, but not really so small in the context of what you just heard. because this concerns Ranjan. An NID graduate who took that wonderful picture of Ranjan, which is on the invitation card and almost everywhere else that we see of him, was very upset that his photograph of Ranjan had been used without his permission. So I got a letter to say, AC, I understand you're going to be there at the AMA when this function takes place. I want you to know how unprofessionally professional designers can be. My photograph has been used without my permission. I think I will go to court. So this stimulated an interesting exchange between me and this wonderful designer. And I finally said to this guy, did you take Ranjan's permission to take his photograph? Did Ranjan ever ask you, in all the years that you knew him, whether you had used his wisdom and given him credit? Did he ever do that? And at the end of this wonderful designer said, AC, I'm very, very sorry. I feel ashamed. And I said, that's fine. But just remember, because he was saying of how important it was to have events like this where you pay tribute to people of Ranjan's stature. I asked him, just remember this, Sudhir, that what are you actually honoring when you honor Ranjan? And this little irritation that you've had, that your photograph has been used without his permission, here was a man that you know was a champion for open source and for sharing long before these phrases became current. And here you are worried about your photograph being used, whereas actually you should be delighted that this radiant photograph is now the way all of us remember him. So, in the last couple of days, we've been talking about this. And I said to Sudhir, I said, don't worry. At this function, Palomi or I will give you full credit. That wonderful photograph of Ranjan is by Sudhir Sharma. And Sudhir Sharma has also just come out with a wonderful little book, the yellow book, if you can just hold that up. Thank you. So I said, at this function in Ranjan's honor, we will publicize your book, right? And we'll give you full credit. So, relax. I'm giving you this example because this guy who you've heard about, would he be employed at the National Institute of Design today? The answer is no. Ranjan had no quote unquote qualifications. And that's why there is this terrible crisis, in my view, and also in Ranjan's view, in the design sector today. Because the education culture, the education system that welcomed Ranjan, so-called unqualified, the greatest intellect that the design movement in India has had to date, unqualified? Let me just tell you some of the things that he went through. You see that book? He worked on this for almost 6 years, maybe 7. Let me tell you that Aditi and Ranjan had to buy their copies of this book. They were not given even one copy complimentary. And did you ever hear him complain about that? He was hurt, but he never complained. I'm telling you that. Would this man be fit material to set up a design school? You've just heard He set up the IIC, helped to set up the IICD in Jaipur. A man of this stature, would he have been a potential candidate as director of the National Institute of Design? I'm going to reveal something here, and I'm doing this with Aditi's permission. Ranjan was unanimously selected as the candidate for the director of the National Institute of Design. And he was betrayed by his institute. When you betray a person of this stature that all of us are celebrating, for his knowledge, for his generosity, for his understanding of his field, for his understanding of the present and the past and the future. When you betray that, you then betray the education system that built him. Today that education system does not exist. Why do I say that? Because design education today is under the system of the UGC. The very trap that NID avoided at the time of its founding. The very battle that some of us, including myself, including Ranjan, and including many others, some of who are here in this room, fought that we would not allow design education to be thrust into a mold of university education in India, exactly the mold that the visionaries who established NID decided was not the place to bring design education into this country. And therefore it was created outside. And therefore the diploma, not the degree. And therefore my job is coming in as director in 1975. The students are just about to come out, 75, 76. Nobody understands what design is. Nobody knows what the hell this diploma is all about. Industry is not interested, apparently, because the protected market, why do we need designers? We can copy. Who is going to employ these people? And if they're not employed, then this experiment, what happens? To cut a long story short, in all the years that I served at NID, for 25 years, not one single employer ever asked me for a mark sheet, whether somebody was a topper or a gold medalist. Never. Not even once. It was a struggle, but our teachers and our students established an Indian model of design education, which in 1979 was acknowledged as a global standard by the United Nations. And what have we done with that? We've thrown it into the wastepaper basket. It doesn't exist anymore. And that was one reason why the night before he died, Ranjan asked me to document the Jawaja story. Because the Jawaja story was about a group of educators and students who go into a part of this country which represents the gut level of problem solving in this country: poverty, discrimination, oppression, lack of hope, lack of opportunity. Go in there to do what? We didn't know. But the group of design educators and design students go into Jawaja in 1976, 75, 76, and they have stuck with them for that journey of 50 years. And this is what Ranjan wanted to document. because he said this is symbolic of what design education should be. The courage, the ability to go into experiment, to fail, to acknowledge your failures, to learn from others, and above all, to work as a team. To work as a team, to draw from other disciplines. But what has Jawaja actually proved? This has come to my attention after the book was written. And I then shared the manuscript with design educators, a handful of them whom I know around the world. And I said, we put this story together. It's a journey of 50 years. Does this make any sense in the context of design in 2023? This was when this conversation took place. And the response that I got was that nowhere else in the world has any design school ever gone into a situation like this and demonstrated that the Bauhaus problem-solving system can operate at this level, where the benchmarks for the project were people who eat once in 2 days, can they eat twice in 1 day? People who are not allowed to drink from the village well in a desert, can they be empowered to have access to the village well? And can they do these two things without depending on outsiders? And the design process demonstrated that yes, it is possible. There are problems in Jawaja today, huge problems. But this demonstration has taken place. And that is what Ranjan wanted me to document, for fear that this would disappear and that this process would not be understood. The process of a design community saying, we have to test our relevance. And we have to test it across all the Indias. And the India that is poverty-stricken is the most important one. So we should go there, even if we don't know what we're doing. And we should try. And we should document what we are trying so that others can learn from it. This book is not a success story. It's learning together. And that's what Ranjan wanted us to understand. And that is what is at risk. Because today under the UGC, Jawaja would be impossible. It would not be tolerated. And that is the tragedy. That is the tragedy. If you read Ranjan's work, and I've been doing a lot of that, some of it in preparation for this evening, but over these years, you can put together a kind of SWOT. What are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for design education today? And from that, one can piece together where should we go from here? And this is the problem that Ranjan was discussing with me when he was urging me to write this book. Where do we go from here? Because what has now happened to design education, you can have all this proliferation of design schools all over the country, but Ranjan had one overriding concern, which was the tragic decline in quality. And in the blueprint which he shared with me of what a design school should be, because I said to him, Ranjan, this is overtaking us. So what is the model? What should it be in the future? Technology has transformed the design sector. We can't go back to where NID was when it started in the 60s and 70s. It's another India, it's another world. Where do we go from here? And he would say, the basics have not changed, AC. The basics have not changed. So he helped with me to list what were the non-negotiables in design education. And how, with technology, he was crazy about technology. He'd get very frustrated with me that I was such an idiot in technology. That's why this offer to buy me a computer and teach me how to use a Mac. But for him, the hand was at the heart of understanding design education. The hand as the root to what he used to say, the inner recesses of the mind. And that, he said, will never change. No matter what technologies you bring in, that is at the heart of design education. The second was teacher-student relationship. Apprentice and learning from each other. The third was that every design educator must be a design professional. And the real world must be brought into the classroom and into the workshop. Third and more important, quality was to be judged by the marketplace. However you define that marketplace. It could be a village hut, it could be an automobile showroom. But it's the market that decides the quality, not an examination, not a marking system. That's gone out of the window. Today, to progress as a design educator, you need a PhD. Ranjan would refuse a PhD even more violently than he refused his NID diploma. One of the days, well before he died, I said to him, what I would like to do, if I have any influence at NID, is to give you an honorary diploma. Would you accept it? And he said yes. And I said, Ranjan, would you ever tolerate one of your students at NID behaving as you did at the jury and walking off in a huff? He said, I would not tolerate it. So he was that kind of guy. But I think the time has come to understand what he went through. I still don't know to this day whether he knows that when he was unanimously selected as the next director of NID, it was the NID governance that said he cannot be the director because he is not qualified. I don't know whether he knew that. I do know that that betrayal led to two people walking out of NID governance forever. One was Praful Anubhai, the other one was me. But I can now tell you that the letter that was written by Mr. Praful Anubhai to the chairman of the National Institute of Design, calling to attention what Ranjan was as an individual, even more important, calling his attention to what Ranjan represented as an NID system of education, as an NID standard of quality, as an NID understanding of design integrity. This letter went to the chairman of the National Institute of Design with a request that it be shared with other members of the board. That was never done. I have permission today from Praful Anubhai to mention this because the actual letter will be revealed in a book which is shortly coming out. I don't know whether Ranjan really knew this. He knew he had been let down. But his concern was not about his past of him being let down as MP Ranjan. His concern was to protect the integrity of the design education experiment which India and NID had led. And I think that's the challenge that he leaves with us. Things have changed, but there is no reason why that sense of quality, those non-negotiables, should be thrown into the waste paper basket. They are as important today as everywhere, as they ever were. In fact, even more important. Let me end with one example. I think you were talking about sustainability. Who raised that issue? You know that today, all the countries that are members of the United Nations have accepted the Sustainable Development Goals. I hope you're aware of that, right? There are 17 of them, okay? So this has now become the Mapdand for human progress. 1979, Paldi, the United Nations holds its first conference on design at NID. Why? To look at the Indian model of design education. At that conference, they draft the Ahmedabad Declaration and the major recommendations. This is 1979. Every one of the Sustainable Development Goals was anticipated in that document. These were not economists. These were not mathematicians. These were not statisticians. These were design students and designers, professional designers, trying to prototype the future. And they came out with a blueprint which anticipated the Sustainable Development Goals. That is the achievement of, that is the strength of this system of education and exploration, because at that conference, who were they who brought this declaration together? Students from all over mostly from NID and IDC, but educators from all over the world. Jawaja was just unfolding then, only 3 or 4 years. People were watching at that. They were watching at the other things that we were doing. But the question was that India had set a standard. And do you hear any of that today in any government document on design education? Is that ability to prototype the future, which Ranjan was always talking about, which was demonstrated in 1979, is that ever recalled? Design education today is run by babus in the ministry. They decide what will be done and what will not be done. And one of the things that Ranjan fought for and he wrote about was that governance of this sector, the design sector, has to change, and the voice of the alumni and of the professional designers must be the most powerful voice at the table of decision making. Does that happen? We are nowhere near that now. So Ranjan has left us with a huge agenda. And what he would like us, I'm sure, like he instructed me the night before he passed away, was not to compromise, not to turn away, not to worry about whether anybody will read the Jawaja book or not read the Jawaja book. He said that to me. Don't worry about the readership. Just get it there as a resource and let the future take care of it. So I think we need to remember him, to honor him, and to remember that the one thing that he wanted us always to be working on is the integrity of design education and of design practice. So I think it's wonderful that we've had this opportunity, but he has left us with a huge agenda. Thank you.
Professor Chatterjee has raised some very important questions that we should all address in our own ways in whatever professions we are in. Students, if you can just note down, that is Ranjan's blog, if at, below where the photo courtesy is there. Please read his work, his teachings, whatever he learned. He always used to tell his students that you never make mistakes. You're a designer. You just change your approach. So never give up. Keep experimenting, keep finding out newer ways to address larger issues that we sometimes forget in this whole world of trying to make a living sometimes. Rat race, maybe we can call it. We come to the last of this session where we would invite members, designers. I'm sorry if I didn't take your names. I know a lot of you by your face. I'm sorry, I don't know your names. If you would like to share your association, anything with Ranjan, any memories that you would like to share? There are a lot of students here who might be interested in knowing. Dinesh Korjan is a senior designer from NID. He taught with, sorry, we need mic. He taught with Ranjan SPD, Simple Product Design.
Thank you. Yeah, I did teach with Ranjan Simple Product Design for many years.
Sorry, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Could you just please face the students if you don't mind, because they might not have seen you
Okay.
before.
Yeah. No, more than anything, there are a few things which Ranjan left behind for us to take forward. All his like the design process, how we design, that was very important for him, and he was constantly keeping abreast of whatever is happening in that space. So he would bring in everyone, whoever he found, into the courses, because he knew that everybody could contribute and some new facet would arise. When the design process course, how you learn to design, originally it was around 10 weeks or 12 weeks or something, and as the years passed by, that the duration was reduced to about 3 weeks and 2 weeks level. So how design process course became DCC is was necessitated because the process had the sense making. When you understand, make sense of the problem itself, and then you converted that into a solution. So he retained the systemic aspect of sense making, which is how he brought in that design concepts and concerns. He retained that, so he changed the name of the course from design process to design concepts and concerns, because that was one thing which was not being offered in the rest of this career, of the student in the institute. So learning how to actually convert that into a solution or a product, that the student would pick up anyway. So he retained this larger aspect of, sense making, and through that course. And it's a very, very, very interesting tools he brought into the picture. How do you make sense of the economy? How do you make sense of very large processes. He brought in the use of metaphors, you know, and through metaphors, suddenly everybody could understand how, you know. When you imagine the economy as a bicycle, you know what is the mover, you know what turns, you know how do you trigger it, everything. So the use of metaphors was to find the structure of the problem. You know, that was a fantastic contribution that he made in design education. Second is the use of scenarios to imagine futures. What if, you know? So it's only after you have imagined what it could be that can you actually convert that into a solution. Huh? So, yes, these are not from the courses which the two of us taught together, but we would all be pulled into his design process course or whatever. Huh? When we came back to Ahmedabad, you know, and we set base here, he pulled me in to teach the simple product design course because he wanted the students to be exposed to plastics, you know, and that wasn't, there were no plastic facilities in the institute, and everyone was scared of how to design a plastic thing because he couldn't make it. So with our experience, both Rashmi and I, when we designed the Symphony Cooler and all the other projects, and we were extensively into that. So it was very exciting time. But even in those courses, like for example, you know, he's constantly trying to figure out the design process and constantly experimenting what could work and what doesn't work, you know. So QADP, quick and dirty prototyping. That was that was something that we experimented. First, he said, "Come, you know, we don't wait for the usual thing of first visualizing what you want to make, then you make a sketch, and then you went to the workshop to make it." He said, "No, tomorrow morning all of you will bring prototypes. You know, we're making comb or something like that." And sure enough, next morning there were 12 prototypes in the class. You know, so which developed into this QADP, you know, which he used to call it. Because those days we were talking about rapid prototyping, this, that, you know, all those kind of things. So he said, no, QADP is important. So if you couldn't make the final one, you made the something which would test out your assumptions. Then the other thing was when he was setting up IICD in Jaipur, you know, so he said, you must teach them design process. I said, design process is your course, I'll co-teach it with you. He said, no, you teach the course. So I said, Ranjan, I have no knowledge of craft, you know. He said, no, you teach them design, you don't have to teach them craft. Which was a nice challenge, and of course he was there to back you up. And so I developed a course where you go from the particular to the, you know, general and then come back, you know. So it was like SPD and design process, you do it together, you know, which was very gratifying, and I actually thank Ranjan for giving me that opportunity. I've developed that course and I continue to offer it even now with fantastic results. The last time I did SPD in the last year or last semester with NID students, out of 22 students I got 30 patentable products. You know? So yeah, those things work, and you know. So yeah, so many things, I can't stop. Sorry, thanks.
Nidhi, please introduce yourself to the students also.
Hi everyone, my name is Nidhi and I've been Ranjan's student since '99 and I'm still his student, I think. I just have a few enduring memories with Ranjan that I want to share with you all. So the first time when we came to NID in 1999, straight out of school, and Ranjan took our DCC course. And he said that I want all your submissions by email. We had to write a paper. And no one had any idea what email was. So an NID computer lab at that time had a few computers which had the internet, and there was always a queue for it, and they barely worked. I mean, that internet was like, it would just keep going and nothing would get connected. So everyone ran to cyber cafes here and there to get the email accounts opened. And only 2 people in our batch knew what email was and how to open that account. I remember going with 100 rupees and paying for the cyber cafe hour and then asking how much extra for the email address I just opened. So that's how naive we were. And but Ranjan sort of pushed it into all of us, saying that this is how things are going to work. You all have to start using it. And then for the other assignment, he said, so next thing you do is you make your folder with your name and put it on unsecure. Now everyone's got Bellapuri and written their names on the folders and roaming around the institute asking, where is unsecure, where is unsecure? So finally Ranjan had to tell us that, you go on the intranet and you put your submission here. So he sort of really made sure that all of us were getting comfortable with the new technology that was coming up. And during the course in 1999, he told us, I encourage all of you to buy Apple shares right now, and you will thank me 20 years later. And he said, I've already bought my shares. And nobody really knew what Apple was. And, Mac hadn't made a comeback by then. There were some old Macs kept in the computer lab that nobody wanted to use. So he said, just buy them now. You won't get them later. You can't afford it later. I don't know how he knew all of this, in 1999 and how big Apple is going to be. But he always said things like this. And he said, you all should come back and contribute to education. And maybe you would not want to come back to NID because, like they say, if you throw peanuts, you'll only get monkeys. So there are only few people who want to be monkeys, I'm sure. But you must come back and give what you've, something back to the institute that is giving you all this education and things like that. So yeah, and lots of so many more things that he shared with us. And even though I was in graphic design, my only course with him was DCC, but that learning never stopped. At wherever we had any discussions, chats, like just casual conversations, I think nobody like Ranjan really. Thank you, that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Nidhi. Would anyone else be interested in sharing? Mala? Anil? Professor Sinha?
There is a lot to share about Ranjan because I have worked with him since 82. 82 when I joined, Ranjan was the chairman of IDS, Integrated Design Service. And a big project on energy came to that time. And I was made part of his team. The renewable resources was the area which me and Ranjan were working. And when the client was coming for the presentation, Ranjan was late for the meeting. And I was going on calling him, Ranjan, come here, they are getting angry. He said, not to worry, just wait, I'll come. He came almost around half an hour late. And he came jumping. What are you doing here? Come on, let's finish it. The client has no time to even utter a single word. Because if you have content, you will have confidence. Ranjan taught me that develop your content so that you will have confidence. And that he has demonstrated time and again to me. And I'm really, because I've done a lot of work with him and learned so much. When this book, Handmade in India, was coming up, I was the chairman of outreach program, And I was asked, because the book was getting delayed, I was asked to write a so-called notice to the team. I said, no, I'll not do that. Aditi and Ranjan have taught me so much, I cannot dare to write so-called notice to him. Then that time I was told, then you will lose your chairmanship. I said, I don't care for it. And I lost my chairmanship of outreach program, if you remember. Then Ranjan called me, Anil, at least you have taken a stand. But that taking a stand, I learned from Ranjan, because in one of the faculty forum, that was the time when Jet Airways was on the boom, and everybody was traveling by the Jet Airways because they were giving the coupons or token or some numbers. No? With that, you can get the free ticket. Ranjan in one of the forums said, if NID is just spending money for your ticket, what right do I have to use that free ticket for myself? And he took a stand. He never got that free ticket from Jet Airways. So if you have the conviction, take a stand. And that Ranjan has given in a big way. You know? And other thing is, after that incident, he called me, Anil, why are you doing symbols here so many? Don't do symbol anymore. You write about whatever you have done. And he motivated me so much. He was just not the teacher, he was a motivator. And he motivates you too, and he understands that what power do you have. And then he will motivate you to function on that. And he made me to compile my work and come out with the book. And the first person who came and congratulated me, from the designer you became the author. His way of looking at the things were very, very different, and I completely agree with you, AC, that the things are going bad, but whatever as an individual one can do, we all should try and do it to do something good for the design as a profession, and not only as an individual. With this, I think all salute to Ranjan. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sinha. I'm sorry, we'll have to vacate this room at 8. So there can be so many stories, so many anecdotes, memories of Ranjan. It can actually take a week, and we can never have enough of learning about Ranjan, learning still today, 9.5 years after he's left us, still learn from Ranjan, and apply his work, apply what he has taught us in our own day-to-day existence. So now, sorry, Sumiran, you want to say something?
He used to write 3 blogs. One is Design for India, another one is for DCC Class Ka blog, and the third one was Information Design. Yeah. And I don't know how much he used to write. Once he asked me to type a website on his laptop. When I look at this keyboard, it was like a convex lens. You can't read a single word on the laptop. Seriously.
So if you go, for the students, if you go on one of the blogs, the links to the other blogs will be there. And there's on the left side also, there will be a lot of PDFs that you can download and read. Thank you so much for taking out your time and sharing with all of us, not only our the personal experiences and learnings and what to look for, where Ranjan, what you said, Professor Chatterjee, turns the compass back. Introspection is very much required. And thank you everyone. Special thanks to Vasavi for taking out a time in helping make the presentation. And Kathan, I invite you to.
Thanks, Polomi, and yeah, so we are almost ending the session. I'd just like to give a vote of thanks to everyone who has been a part of the session. Thank you to all the panelists, especially the discussions you brought. It was something very special for me as a student of NID, that all the memories back 15 years back or 18 years back, we are traveling the journey back, like seeing the photographs of DCC, and then like I can so relate very well that when I go to Sumiran's studio and I still see the photo of Ranjan. So we all are a part of what Ranjan has really taught us, and we all are standing here and doing what we are because of Ranjan. So firstly I would like to thank the panelists. Thank you for sharing your memories. Thank you for bringing us very important perspectives what Ashok Chatterjee has brought us. And that's something to think in the direction of design education. And that's the way we go forward. And I would like to thank the team of Ahmedabad Management Association. They have, they will be associated with us, and they will be happy to collaborate on further many talks. So we'll be having 3 talks till March. And we are also planning to launch many workshop sessions. So thank you to Umesh ji and their entire team for organizing this entire event. Thanks, Paulomi, for the wonderful curation. So Paulomi has been really working and planning the entire event to make it happen. And the ADI committee has a huge team also in the different committees. So we would like to thank them. And the audience who really made it possible. There are lots of faculties of ours, like I see Anil, I see Sangeeta Shroff and Errol and everyone. And I think it's very important for us that you all are here. So thank you for being here. And Shimul also for always being there as a mentor to us. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very important that all the current faculties and from NID as well as all the institutions, Ahmedabad is really the mecca of design. And we do have so many institutions in Ahmedabad, and as ADI we feel that it would be the real place to have chai coffee together. We all used to have it at Chai Gate, so abhi hum log har mahine ek baar milte hain and let's share our ideas together. So yeah. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to the entire team and all visitors, all the members.
Just a quick mention, the YouTube link to this talk will be available. We'll send it to you as soon as AMA sends it to us. Thank you.
So I think it's also streamed on their Facebook, if I'm not wrong. It's streamed on the Facebook. No. They will share it with us, sorry. RANJAN kind of selfie. It's very important, and then we can have a formal photo. I think we all have had selfies with RANJAN, and I do relate with every